You know those numbing sensations and feelings of escape that often result from consuming cannabis? Well, many times people view those things as beneficial, but the reality is they're actually major drawbacks and probably one of the worst side effects of consuming cannabis. And I say this as someone who deeply struggled with a cannabis substance use disorder for several years of my life. Cannabis creates one of the most uncomfortable comfort zones. It makes a person uncomfortably numb. Cannabis creates what I refer to as the F it mentality. Who cares as long as I can get high? And there's a chance that this F it mentality is costing you a lot more than you know when it comes to your business, your relationships, your finances, your mental health, and your physical health. And in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you recognize some areas of your life where you might be stuck in that uncomfortable comfort zone. And then I'm going to provide you with a solution to step out of that comfort zone, just like for the hundreds of other people I've done this with before, in helping them move towards a decision to stop consuming cannabis and break that cycle of addiction once and for all. Now, real quick, if you're a high performance individual, we have a science backed protocol that's 98% effective at helping people get sober in as little as 48 hours from the comfort and privacy of their own home in real time, in real life, without a public display of their cannabis substance use. So if that appeals to you, check out the link in the video description. The first thing I think you have to ask yourself is, why do these emotions exist? And what emotions is it that I'm trying to escape from and that I'm trying to numb out? For most people, myself included, that I've worked with over all these years, it tends to be feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression. The second question that you have to ask yourself after you identify the emotions that you're trying to numb out are, what scenarios, what aspects of my life are resulting in these emotions? Third, we have to then ask ourselves, are these emotions meant to be suppressed, or are they emotions that should be embraced? Because there's a good chance that those emotions are there for a reason. You're not experiencing them by mistake. I want you to think of it like this. If your house was on fire, you would hear the smoke alarms go off, and that's a warning from your house that you need to evacuate. Consuming cannabis is comparable to turning off the smoke alarms in your house, your body, your brain, when the house is burning down. When you have those emotions of stress, anxiety, depression, it's your body's way of telling you something needs to change, that you need to take action. You have an emotion first, the emotion drives an action, and the action drives change. And consuming cannabis and numbing and escaping our emotions ultimately results in one of the most uncomfortable comfort zones, as I like to say. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some common scenarios where I've identified this in clients that I've helped over the years. So I was working with a medical professional. We work with a lot of medical professionals when it comes to substance use, by the way. And this individual was a physician turned entrepreneur who was still practicing. And they got into, well, I won't say what the business is, but a business that they had built for themselves. And they built a monster business for themselves. In talking to them after our first call, they were telling me how much they disliked the career and the business path that they created for themselves. And we identified that they were consuming stimulants and cannabis and other substances to numb out the feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression that were associated with the career that they had chosen for themselves, this beautiful business that they have built. And what I said to them was, look, I would rather have you stop consuming drugs, experience those emotions of stress, anxiety, frustration, anger, resentment, and use those emotions to fuel you in an eventual different direction. Not immediate, but an eventual different direction in your life. And it was like a light bulb moment for this individual during our conversation where they were like, oh my gosh, I've been just trying to power through and push through with using drugs in a life that I'm actually quite dissatisfied with. And I was able to closely relate to this person because it was something that I had experienced as an entrepreneur and a business owner myself. Prior to doing addiction recovery coaching, and I'm still involved in this aspect of my business, by the way, I was working 12 hours a day, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, treating patients in my chiropractic office. And despite the fact that I enjoy chiropractic, I identified that it was something that I did not want to be doing for the rest of my life. 12-hour days of endless patient care just wasn't for me. And what I was doing was I would treat all day. I would consume nicotine all day long just to cope with the long hours, the long stressful days, the stressful decision making. And then I would go home and I would drink alcohol on the weekends and I would get high at night. And for years, I never attempted to make a change because I would say, well, I'm stuck in this business situation that I also built for myself. But I'd be like, F it, who cares? At least I can get high at night. At least I can go get drunk with my friends on the weekend. F it, who cares? This is a horrible mentality to have. I also started to develop this mentality in my physical appearance, in my body. I wasn't satisfied with my nutrition. I wasn't satisfied with my physical physique. And this was resulting in lower levels of confidence. But I would say to myself, F it, who cares? I'll just go home, smoke some weed, eat some junk food, and I'll try again tomorrow. I can always start tomorrow. I had a client that I was recently working with, a female client, and she had recently quit smoking cannabis. And she had said to me, I'm really feeling a lot of anxiety. I'm feeling a lot of stress regarding my physical health. I'm not in the shape I want to be, and I don't have the body that I want to have. And what I said was, although those are hard emotions to deal with, I'm glad that you're experiencing them because those emotions are what are going to drive actions. And the actions that you take, going to the gym, going for walks, using your spin bike, eating healthier, using all the apps you have, all the fitness apps this person had, is what's eventually going to result in change. And that change, in this person's case, was going to result in increased confidence. This is what it's all about, breaking away from that effort mentality and learning to sit with those emotions and experience them so we can actually start to change the things in our life that we're dissatisfied with. Another common scenario that I'll see where people aren't happy might be in their home life. Maybe their house is really disorganized and a mess. They got 3 or 4 kids running around. The house is cluttered. There's stuff everywhere. And it just drives them nuts. They're stressed constantly about it, whatever it may be. It was the same individual that I was talking to, and they said, since quitting weed, I'm feeling like way better. And this person quit within the first conversation we had. And they said, but I'm really stressed about this house situation. My landscaping isn't where it needs to be. There's clutter everywhere. I have way too much stuff. And I said, good. I'm glad that you're acknowledging that. I'm glad that you feel uncomfortable because it's that discomfort that's going to push you towards changing things. As compared to when you were smoking weed, it would be you're still uncomfortable. You're still dissatisfied with the shape that your house is in, but you're just saying, F it, who cares? It's out of my control. I'll worry about it another day. And it's so neat working with clients and watch them take action in real time, in real life, as they're quitting cannabis on the things that they actually care about in life. Another common scenario that I experienced and where I've seen this time and time again with people is in relationships. And this is often a tricky scenario and a delicate scenario, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone quit drinking alcohol, quit smoking cannabis, and then admit to me, hey, I'm stuck in a relationship that I'm not happy with. I'm stuck in a marriage that I don't want to be in, and I haven't wanted to be in it for 20 years. I've heard this from people at more times than you could imagine. And I say to them, look, although this is sad, although this is not a great thing, I'm happy that you're acknowledging it. Because now we can either identify the problems within that relationship and start to work on them, or you can start to put together a plan to exit, if that's really what exiting is in your best interest. It's scary. It's an intense conversation, but I would rather have that conversation with a person than watching them slowly try and escape and numb themselves until eventually they just die from it, not addressing the things that need to be addressed. Another common area in my life that I experienced this effort mentality, I'll worry about it another day, which by the way is a subconscious mindset of rot that cannabis substance use creates, F it, who cares, I'll worry about it tomorrow, that subconscious rot can start to creep into other areas of your life. So watch out for that. Was the amount of people taking me for granted. I had, on a professional level and on a personal level, several individuals taking my empathy, my kindness, my generosity for granted. And when I quit consuming cannabis, I had a certain amount of anger and resentment. And what I learned was that some of that anger and resentment was actually warranted. And when properly harnessed, I used it to create change. I changed my relationships on a professional level and on a personal level. I used those emotions to my advantage instead of trying to suppress them. This is what quitting cannabis is all about. And this is one of the major spots where I see people trip up time and time again. They quit cannabis, these emotions come up, and then they try and suppress them. And what really should be happening is we should quit cannabis, allow these emotions to come up, learn how to work through them properly, and then harness those emotions to take actions, which those actions will then result in change. Change that can dramatically change the outlook of a person's life and future in a really, really, really positive way. Believe it or not, stress, anxiety, depression, relatively negative emotions can actually drive very positive change and very positive outcomes. As a society, we've become so obsessed with suppressing these emotions, suppressing these feelings. People are staying stuck, uncomfortably numb in some of the most uncomfortable comfort zones. And they've just been stuck in it for so long, it feels comfortable to them. This is what consuming cannabis is. It's shutting down our innate warning system that we need to make change, that we need to take action. So step one to solving this problem is identifying the negative emotions that you're suppressing. Step two is identifying the situations that are resulting in those negative emotions. And then step three is learning how to sit with those emotions and eventually convert those emotions into actions so you can start to experience change. Now, one of the major problems with cannabis is it's a drug of demotivation. It's a drug of procrastination. So the very emotions that you need to drive change are actively being suppressed by cannabis consumption. And that's a major issue. So if you are a high performance individual, we have a protocol for you that has a 98% success rate at helping people get sober from the privacy and comfort of their own home without having to admit that you're powerless over the drug, without having to go to lifelong group meetings to help you quit in real time, in real life. Here's the bottom line. Feelings of stress, anxiety, depression, anger, regret, all of these emotions are there for a reason. Think of them as like guardrails on a bowling lane. They're there to keep you from making really, really bad choices. And if we're suppressing those emotions, we're turning off our body's natural warning mechanisms. And in doing so, we might find that we eventually get burned or get seriously hurt. It's like turning off the airbags in your car, just waiting for a car accident to happen. It doesn't make any sense. Now, there's another catch to this. Cannabis doesn't actually create an escape. It doesn't actually create a numbing emotion. What cannabis does is it creates a distraction from what it is you should actually be dealing with. And we can quickly correct for this by just finding other distractions, but we can find other distractions that are going to create positive momentum in your life versus negative momentum. And this is where so many people go wrong. They say to themselves, well, I smoke cannabis to escape. I smoke cannabis because I like the numb effect. And what they're doing when they're saying this to themselves is reinforcing their belief system that cannabis has the benefit of escapism or numbing. Cannabis at best is a distraction. And what it's distracting us from are the things in life that actually need the most attention. In 99% of cases, at least that's been my experience in working with people. So when we break that cycle, we can actually start working on the things that matter most. So the next logical step to create change is to quit cannabis. That's where most people need to start, and all this other stuff falls into place in many cases just by osmosis. So if you want to follow me right into the next video, I put a 6-minute video telling you some of the most beneficial things I could think of when it comes to quitting cannabis and leaving that addiction in the past. So I'll see you there.